Shalom everyone and welcome to Busisiwe, blessed in English, Baruch in Hebrew, which means increase, fruitfulness and multiplication. My name is Abigail. We continue with the series entitled Knowing the End from the Beginning. And today we'll be looking at the 6 days of creation, as one of the angels was instructed by Yahuwah to give an account of the creation history to Moshe to write down. We spoke about this earlier on in the previous teaching, that when Moshe was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, he did not only write the 10 commandments. You don't need more than 30 days to just write 10 sentences or 10 commandments. There was more that he was given to write. And to this extent, the purpose of today's teaching, most of us know the history of creation from the book of Barashith or from the book of Genesis. But as I have been advocating that people should not only read the books that are from Genesis to Revelation, that there are other books that were removed from the Bible that provide more context, more information, more clarity, more explanation, that we can still have access to, such as the book of Jubilees, the book of Joshua, the book of Enoch, the book of 4th Ezra, and so many others. Now, this particular teaching, today's teaching, is that we're going to be looking at the contrast in terms of what is it as far as the account of creation was written or is written in the book of Barashith or Genesis, and what is written in the book of Jubilees or Yobel. The information is supposed to be exactly the same. Why? Because it was given by the same angel that instructed Moshe as he was sent, or as he himself was instructed by Yahuwah, gave the same information. So whether that information is written in the book of Genesis or Barashith, or that information is written in the book of Yobel or Jubilees, it should be the same, because it was written by the same person, which is Moshe. And Moshe received the account of creation from one angel, or a malak, an angel, that he received from. But as we're going to be going through this analysis, we're going to be pick up then that there are differences, and which again advocate or emphasize the need of getting a broader context of the word, because so much information was removed from the word, and not today we're not going to go to as to why, in as much as we appreciate that at least we have the word, but the fact that there was certain people that made a call that this must be removed, or this must be the account, how it must be written, it must be only limited to this information and not the other, the decision to change people's names, the decisions to remove names and replace them with titles, all those kind of things I talk about in the previous teachings. But where we are right now is no man has an excuse, because we will all stand before the judgment of Yahuwah, and he will say, everyone, you had access to this information, and he is a just judge. He cannot go to some people who are living in some remote village that do not even have internet or access to these books and ask them about these books, because they didn't have. But anyone that had access to this information, either through browsing through my videos or someone else's videos or through the internet, then it is up to you to say that you chose not to receive the information. Now let's start then the comparison. Day one of creation. So obviously we're going to start, with day one of creation. And if we read the book of Jubilees or Yobel chapter 2 verse 1, it says, "The angel of the presence spoke to Moshe according to the word of Yahuwah, saying, write the complete history of the creation, how In 6 days, Yahuwah, our Allah, finished all his works and all that he created, and kept the Shabbat on the 7th day, and sanctified it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works. So from the word go, we're seeing here the angel instructing Moshe that he needs to be writing down the history of creation, how in 6 days Yahuwah finished all his works which he created. In the same breath, the same introduction, the angel is telling Moshe about the Shabbat, how Yahuwah kept the Shabbat on the 7th day and sanctified it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works. This is how important is the Shabbat, that it is even introduced by the angel or the malak in the opening of, get yourself ready, you're going to be writing this is what happened. Now if we look at the same chapter, Yobel chapter 2 or Jubilee chapter 2 from verse 2 to 3, it says, for on the first day he created the heavens, or the Shamayim, which are above, and the Areth, and the waters, and all the Ruachods, or the spirits, which serve before him, the angels of the presence. So Moshe is told that on the first day, Yahuwah created the heavens. He created the heavens, in Hebrew it is the Shamayim. He created the earth, and the earth in Hebrew is the Areth. And he created the waters. The waters in Hebrew is the Mayim. And the reason why I'm mentioning the Hebrew names is you'll see more context when we then discuss the Shamayim and the Mayim, or the heavens and the waters, later. And then he also created the angels on day 1. The word then continues to say that he then gives the classes of angels. He says the angels that is giving an account. He continues to say that and all the spirits, or the Ruachot, or the angels that serve before him. Then here are the classes of the angels. The angels of the presence, of the sanctification, of fire, of winds, of clouds, of darkness, of hail, of frost, of voices of thunder and lightning, of cold, of heat, of winter, of spring, of autumn, of summer, of all the ruachot of his creatures which are in the heavens and are on the earth. These are what he was told to write. Then Yahuwah created the abysses. Remember, this is plural, not abysses, which will also go a separate teaching as to what is an abyss, or what are abysses. Okay. He also created the darkness, evening and night. He created the light as well, dawn and day, which he has prepared in the knowledge of his heart. Thereupon we saw his works and praised him and lauded before him on account of all his works. So the angel is now summarizing for Moshe, who, as he wrote the Book of Yobel, or the Book of Jubilee, he's also summarizing the works that were created on day 1. There were 7 works that were created on day 1. It was the Shamayim, or the heavens. It was the Arets, or the earth. It was the Mayim, or the waters. It was the Ruachots, or the angels, or the spirits. It was the abysses. It was darkness, and it was light. Those are 7 works that Yahuwah created on day 1. Now, let's then compare with the book of Barashith, or the book of Genesis, to see what is written in the book of Genesis as far as what was created on day 1. We find this in Barashith, or Genesis chapter 1, from verse 1 to verse 2, and it reads, in the beginning, Allah created the Shamayim, which is the heavens, and the Areth, which is the earth. And the Areth was formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Ruach of Alua was moving on the surface of the Mayim, or the waters. This is what Barashith tells us. And then it continues on verse 3, we're still on chapter 1, verse 3 to verse 5, and then it says, and Alua said, let light come to be, and light came to be. And Alua saw the light, that it was good. And Alua separated the light from the dark. And Alua called the light Yom, or day, and the dark he called Layla, or night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Now, let's do the comparison. First, I said the reason why I am so much, and there's so many other brothers and sisters that are saying there's so many other books other than what is listed on the 66 canon Bibles that we're using, Genesis to Revelation. A lot of people say that the Torah is the 5 books that Moshe wrote, being Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And that is not true. Moshe also wrote the Book of Yobel, or the Book of Jubilee, and the other books also which he wrote. And again, the word Torah simply means instructions, commands, how to, whatever commands that Yahweh gave, or whatever instruction that he gave. So you cannot limit that to only 5 books, because you only have access to 5 books. The other part, when you do the comparison of the 2 narration of the history of creation between Barashith, or Genesis, and between Yobel, is that, as I said earlier on, the angel is introducing the subject of the Shabbat and how important it is, as he's just getting Moshe to start writing, to say, listen, I'm going to be giving you an account of creation, that how in 6 days Yahweh created this, and also how he rested on the Shabbat, sanctifying it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign. He's introducing the Shabbat as a sign from the word go. On the other hand, when you read the book of Barashith, you only hear about the Shabbat after creation, which is from chapter 2 of the book, and which by Shabbat being introduced after the creation, it kind of like diminishes the importance of it as compared to how in the book of Jubilee, from the word go, it was introduced. That's number 1. Number 2, when we read the account according to Barashith or Genesis, we hear that that the Areth was that in the beginning Yahweh created the Shamayim and the Areths, and Areth was formless and empty. It just says in the beginning Yahweh created the Areths and the Shamayim, but it doesn't say when in the beginning. Whereas the book of Jubilee is specific that on day 1 Yahweh created the Shamayim. On day 1 Yahweh created the Areths. It's specific. But the book of Barashith, it's kind of like in the beginning, and then you ask yourself, when does the beginning start? When do you start counting or looking at the beginning? Clarity, on the other hand, is provided in the book of Yobel or Jubilee. The book of Barashith also continues to say that the earth was formless, it was empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep. 2 things that are being mentioned here which are critical. Darkness being on the face of the deep. Now, the book of Barashith does not tell us that darkness was created on day 1, or for that matter, it does not tell us that it was created. It just comes across as if there was darkness, and this darkness was on the face of the deep. But if you look at the book of Jubilees, if you look at the book of Yobel, it specifically tells us that Yahuwah created the darkness. And he created the darkness on day one. It's not what is insinuated in Barashith that in the beginning Yahuwah created the Shamayim and the Arets, and the Arets was formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, as if darkness had always been there. No, it had not always been there. It was created by Yahuwah, and it was created on day one. You're going to ask me what is the relevance. You'll be able to get the relevance as we continue unpacking this teaching, and how important it is to know when was created on which day, and that what Yahuwah created. Then he also says that this darkness was on the face of the deep. Now the deep is the abysses, or the abyss, and we'll go to a separate teaching altogether on the abyss. I touched on the abyss when I was teaching on where do people go when they die. I spoke about, I defined the abysses there according to the word, which is also in the same playlist of knowing the end from the beginning. But the abysses, or the deep, was also created on day one, which we are told in the book of Yobel or Jubilee, but we are not told in the book of Barashith. We just kind of like, it was there, and even as to the definition, what is the deep, or what is the abyss? What's the purpose of the deep? What is the purpose of it's not like a by the way. The fact that these were created on day one, Yahuwah does not just do things haphazardly. There was a plan behind it, and we'll see it when we go to the topic of the abysses itself. Barashith also continues to say that, and the Ruach of Alwa was moving on the surface of the Mayim. Mayim being the waters. Again, as if the waters had always been there. The book of Genesis comes across as if the darkness had always been there, the deep or the abysses had always been there, and the waters had always been there, and Yahuwah just saw these being formless and empty, and then he spoke. And that's not true. He created the waters. He created the Mayim, and he created it on day one. And that's why even Yobel, or the book of Jubilee, does a clear breakdown to say there are 7 works that were created on day one, or there are 7 creations created on day one. These 7s are the Shamayim, the heavens, the Mayim, the waters, the Arets, the earth, the Ruachoth, or the spirits, or the angels, the abysses, or the deep, the darkness, and the light. But when we read in Barashith chapter 1 verse 3 to 5, it says, and Allah called the light day, and the dark he called night, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. It really gives an impression that the only creation that was made on day one was the light, because it doesn't mention that darkness was created on day one. It doesn't mention that the deep was created on day one. It doesn't mention that the Shamayim was created on day one. It doesn't mention that the Arets, or the earth, was created on day one. It just focuses on the light being created on day one, which kind of like says that there was only one creation made on day one. Meanwhile, there were 7 creations on day one. This is very important. The other part that also, when you look at the book of Barashith, it says that, and the Ruach of Alwa, or the Spirit of God, as in other versions it will say, was moving on the surface of the Mayim. Now, it is now introducing a separate entity, that you have God, or you have the Alwa, or God, and then you have another entity, which is the ruach of Aloha, or the Spirit of God. As if there are two. There's God, and then there's the Spirit of God. There's Aloha and the ruach of Aloha. And that's not the case. That is not true. It's not true because the book of Devarim, or Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4, it says, "Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Aloha, Yahuwah is one." He is one. It is the ruach of Aloha which is within him. So it's not like a separate entity that is apart from each other. And this is the thing, that how it is spoken of, that we are kind of like, our minds, by virtue of saying that Aloha created the Shamayim, or Aloha created the heavens, and the Ruach of Aloha was moving on the face of the deep, and Aloha said, because that's how when you read the book of Barashith, it says, and Aloha said, and Aloha said. As if there's the Spirit of God, and then there's God who is now saying this. This was the whole idea, that we were already preconditioned to be accepting the teaching or the theory of Trinity. Even though it's not written in any word, but somehow people believe that there's even people saying that God is 3 in 1. Some people have even made songs out of the Trinity principle to say, God, blessed be him who is 3 in 1, blessed Trinity. I think it goes like this. Blessed Trinity, God in 3 persons. Yeah, I think the song goes like, God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. So they're saying it's God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. There is no such thing. And people came with those ideas because of how the word depicted the story, or the history rather, of creation. Now, the question is, even at this particular time, as I said, our minds are conditioned to accept the principle of Trinity, because you are now looking at God the Father was creating, and there was Holy Spirit, who is God, who was also hovering around, as the word says. And then later we then introduced to God the Son. So hence the whole confusion of Trinity, or God in 3 persons, which is not true. Hence I always maintain that it matters who wrote the story, or it matters who is narrating the story. The account is coming from who, because whoever narrates the story, whoever comes with telling the story, they're going to tell it from their perspective. And it is known, and no one can debate this, that Christianity came from Catholics. And the Protestants, they obviously, even as the word says, they protested against the Catholics, and all the other then denominations then were a break up, which was initially they were breaking up from the Catholic Church. And we know the issue of Trinity, or the belief of Trinity, coming from the Catholics, that as Christianity was born from Catholicism, that some people still maintained the principle of Trinity, even though they had moved away from Catholicism, or Catholics. Even though they've moved them, but they still have some foundations that they still did not discard, that came from Catholicism, or Catholics. This is now the issue when it talks about Romans chapter 12 verse 1, of the renewal of your mind, to be able to say, yes, as I grew up, I knew this information. As we're taught in a church, this is what we're told. But what does the word say? And if I read the book of Genesis, I need to be able to compare it with other books, because the whole issue is even the scripture says that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. So you have safety if there is a collaboration of the same story in different books. But when you see that a matter is only mentioned in one book and it does not collaborate with the other, then you need to be able to question, understanding that the people that wrote these Bibles are human beings. It wasn't written by the angels. They are human beings who are fallible. They are human beings who have biases. Hence, in our times, these books are now being revealed. Not only are these books revealed, but the Ruach of Yahuwah, the Spirit of Yahuwah, the Spirit of the Father, then gives us enlightenment, understanding, revelation, which is beyond what is written in ink on the paper. So that is the comparison between the two. That the other part that is worth mentioning is that there's a lot that is written about the angels which were created on day 1 in the book of Yobel, chapter 2 from verse 1 and verse 2 to 3. But it's not mentioned at all. The creation of the angels is not mentioned at all in the book of Barashith. Why not? And there is so much information regarding the function of the Malakim, or the function of the angels, and how we relate with them, that in so many ways that in fact the word says that they are ministers that are sent forth for us. But people think that angels are superior beings than them, which is not the case. And there's even misinterpretation of Psalms 8, which says that you have made us a little lower than angels. We're not little lower than angels, for we are created in Yahuwah's image. Yahusha did not die for angels, but the angels that sinned, but he died for mankind. That already says something about how Yahuwah sees us in relation to the angels, that the angels are ministering servants for us, the book of Hebrews say. And on the other hand, the book of Genesis does not mention the creation of angels at all. And the sad part is that angels are actually depicted as, sometimes they're depicted as this helpless, fat, naked babies with wings. And you look at these things and you're thinking, how is that going to be helping me in times of danger? But what we read of the Malakim, or the angels, they are huge creatures. I mean, one, I think it's the seraphim that we are told that it has 6 wings, 2 wings covering his face, 2 wings covering his feet, and then with the other he is flying, and millions and millions of them serving before the presence of Yahuwah. These are not helpless, as I said, naked, fat babies that are just like you thinking, if anything were to happen to me, is this going to help me, or I would have to help it. Some of them have got this cubit arrow, whatever it is. It's a wrong depiction. And in fact, talking about the wrong depiction, why are they even depicted? Because Yahuwah commanded us in the book of Devarim chapter 5, as well as Shemoth. Devarim is Deuteronomy chapter 5. Deuteronomy chapter 5, as well as Exodus or Shemoth chapter 20, that we must not make any images of anything in the earth, or in the heavens, or in the waters, or anywhere else. We're not supposed to be making any images. But people are disobeying Yahuwah's commandment, and then they're making these images which are not even a true reflection of what these angels are. I mean, we went through the classes of angels in details. There's one that is responsible for the sun, the movement of the luminaries, the one that is responsible for the cold, the winter, the summer, the fire, the thunder, the lightning, so many angels of the presence, angels of sanctification. Why would you just decide, I'm not going to put all this information, whatever little that they have, that on day one light was created is sufficient for them? Why? We are here now, and you cannot blame those that did what they did at the time. And the reality now is we now have the information, and we have a responsibility to then read the scriptures for ourselves and seek Yahweh for clarity. And it's like people that constantly blame a particular regime or the particular era. What are you going to do by looking at the past? You are here now. What do you have available to? What do you have access to? Are you then using it? That's all that matters right now. And that's why we're preaching these messages, that in my case, I'm grateful that even when I've been saved long time ago, I got to know this information maybe like a year or two, but I had been saved for close to 27 years or so. Why is this information not being preached? Because people are content with the little in their churches that their pastors will come and preach to them or teach them. Every person is responsible for their own salvation. The word says that work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Your own salvation. Your pastor is not responsible for your salvation. Your prophet is not responsible for your salvation. The teacher of the word is not responsible for your salvation. An evangelist, no one is responsible for your salvation. Our role is the workers in the kingdom, either in the capacity that Yahweh entrusts us of a teacher, of a shepherd, of an emissary or an apostle, of a caller or an evangelist, whichever office that Yahweh has called us into. Our role is just to point people to the truth. It is your responsibility to then honor the truth, embrace the truth, work with the truth. And the truth is the word. That truth is Yahushua HaMashiach is the truth. We can only point to him. And then you have to a duty and a responsibility to then establish your relationship with him. We'll then pause at this point in time, and then we'll then be looking at following up from the belief of Trinity and just get correction. What does the word say? Shalom.